Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, July 11th, 2025. I'm Ed Kavick, November 2, Echo Charlie. In the log this week, we'll be congratulating Katie Campbell, KE8LQR, who is named Young Ham of the Year for 2025. We'll also be talking about prominent POTA activator Tripp Owens and 4N2O, who sadly and tragically became a silent key in the last week. Also, Hamshack Hotline's VoIP service will be shutting down on August 29th, 25. We'll be discussing that. Also, some MVARC Nets on the air. See what's happening with DX, get a solar activity update, also look at some upcoming contests, and discuss some interesting online radio content. Amateur Radio Newsline announced that this year's recipient of the Bill Pasternak WA6ITF Memorial Amateur Radio Newsline Young Ham of the Year Award is Katie Campbell, KE8LQR of Columbiana, Ohio. Katie is a remarkable 17-year-old young woman who has been very active in the hobby. I've been very fortunate to know her through her involvement as an instructor in the Long Island CW Club's kids program, where she has led the advanced CW classes. In addition to her CW instruction, she has been very active in contesting, participating in the 2023 K3LR IOTA Dave Coulter Youth DX Adventure in 2023, and also in 2024 at K3LR to lead CW operations. She's also been an attendee and a part of the organizing staff for Youth on the Air, or YOTA camps, where she acts as a mentor and a social media manager, and she's also made several presentations at Dayton Hamvention, Orlando Hamcation, and CPAC. She also does a lot of work to build youth engagement in the hobby, serving as the ARL Assistant Youth Section Coordinator for Ohio and net control of the Ohio Section Youth Net, and the Young Ladies Radio League Youth Chairwoman, also participating in many other activities. For a full list of her activities, check out her QRZ profile. And congratulations to Katie on this well-deserved award. I'm sure her best is yet to come. Kevin W1DED interviewed Katie about a year ago on his YouTube channel, and there's a link in the show notes to that. And the press release from Amateur Radio Newsline can also be found in the show notes. Tripp Owens, N4NTO, passed away in a tragic accident on the 4th of July while activating Aversboro Battlefield Historic Site, US 11375, when his antenna contacted overhead power lines as he was shutting down his activation, causing him to be electrocuted. Tripp was 57. He was a prolific POTA activator with 663 successful activations in 84 parks with 19,464 QSOs as an activator. He was also an avid contester, focusing on CW and a member of CW Ops and PVRC. There has been an outpouring of remembrances from those who knew him in the amateur radio community, and he will be deeply missed. This is an unfortunate reminder that one of the most dangerous things we encounter in the field are power lines. Please, make sure to look up and around when you set up your antennas to ensure that you stay well clear of utility lines. All it takes is a gust of wind or a failed guy line to cause disaster. Thomas, K4SWL, has a post with more information on his site and recommendations for best practices for safe antenna deployments at QRPR.com. The link is in the show notes. Our deepest condolences go out to Tripp's family and friends. Tripp's obituary can be found at a link in the show notes. The popular voice-over IP telephony network for amateur radio operators, Hamshack Hotline, announced they will be shutting down their project effective August 29th, 2025. The service started in 2018 as a way to allow amateurs to connect using IP telephones, allowing them to call each other on their own hotline numbers. It was a popular service that had over 7,000 users at its peak, but it appears to have become a victim of its own success. As it scaled, so did the demands on the volunteers who allowed the service to operate. The organization plans to donate the remaining cash reserves from the operation to a charity supporting veterans, to be announced soon. Their full statement can be found at hamshackhotline.com. Thanks to subscriber Corey, KN4YZY, who alerted me to this story. If you come across amateur radio-related news you think would be good to share on Amateur Radio News and Notes, please feel free to send me a message. And now let's talk about some MVARC Nets on the air. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m., we have our 2-meter FM net on the repeater, and that is immediately followed by our 2-meter digital net on the same frequency using Yaesu System Fusion, C4 FM. On Saturdays and Sundays, we have the MVARC Slow Speed CW Roundtable. at 7:30 a.m. on 3.565 megahertz on CW, and we will go whatever speed you are comfortable, usually about 12 to 15 words a minute. And that is followed at 8:30 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday by the MVARC Cherry Tree Net on 3.920 megahertz lower sideband, where we always have a great conversation, and you're always welcome to join us. Now let's talk about what's happening with DX this week. There's going to be a good amount of DX on the bands this week, and stations on the air will include Miquelon Island, Avinamu Beach SBA, Svalbard, Fuerte Island, Nicaragua, Tarawa Kiribati, Benin, Kuwait, and Antarctica. A calendar of DX expeditions can always be found at dxnews.com/calendar. And now it's time for a solar activity update. As we go to press, the solar flux index was 129 and the estimated sunspot number was 96, with 5 numbered sunspot regions visible on Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has remained about the same, and solar activity has been at low levels recently. The geomagnetic field is at quiet levels, and the KP was at 1 yesterday evening. The solar wind reached 428 kilometers a second yesterday. Solar activity is predicted to be at quiet levels today and to quiet to unsettled levels tomorrow. There's a chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is very low at only 1%, and a slight chance of R1 to R2 radio blackouts are possible in the near term with a predicted probability of about 35%. R3 or greater blackouts are unlikely with only a 1% chance predicted. There's a chance of 6-meter propagation, so keep an eye on the band and spotting clusters to be ready for the next time the Magic Band does its thing. HF conditions have been favorable overall, and it remains a fantastic time for amateurs of all licensed classes to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. Good information of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see D-layer absorption data and associated radio blackouts, visit the NOAA DRAP page. And to see real-time maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2 information from Radio Sun data, visit prop.kc2g.com. And now it's time to talk about some upcoming contests. On the contest calendar this weekend, we'll see the SKCC Weekend Sprintathon. Also, the IARU HF World Championship. This will be a big one, as well as the QRP ARCI Sunday Homebrew Sprint and the 4 States QRP Group Second Sunday Sprint. As always, those K1 USN SSTs, the MSTs, and the CWTs will also be on the air. And a full contest calendar with all the events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And now let's wrap things up with a little interesting online radio content. Steve, KM9G, experiments with an NVIS setup for his spool tenna. Dugbo, KD7DUG, does a VHF pack tenna activation from Black Mountain. Mike, K8RD, shows his new Denko 5.5 amp-hour lithium iron phosphate battery. Jason, KM4ACK, looks at a 12-volt powered PC to take over from his Raspberry Pi. Matt, M0DQW, takes a look at the RADE V1 for FreeDV. Save It for Parts looks at the Hack RF Porta Pack. Mort G4BSK fixes a broken antenna for 3D printing. Duff WA7BFN gives us another edition of the Long Island CW Club podcast. Always a must listen. Jason, KM4ACK, shows a radio repair toolkit that he put into a compact case. George, VK2 AOE, takes a look at an inexpensive RF attenuator. Kevin, W1DED, talks to Les, KI5 GTR, about his POTA activations. Mike, KMRD, takes a look at the mini lithium iron phosphate battery. Also, Mark, KD7DTS, and Ara, N6ARA, talk to Tim, N7KOM, for the second episode of Sofas on the Air. DKO6BTM gives an animated intro into Morse code. Matt, M0DQW, gives a loop on ground antenna a try. Dan, WD4DAN, makes a tribute to Tripp, N4NTO. Dugbo, KD7DUG, takes us on a mountain Morse journey. Rob, N1NUG, activates from the highest point in Rhode Island for POTA. Spoiler alert, it's not so high, but he does have a fun time out there. Mike, K8MRD, finds a USB-C PD outlet that works with his FTX1F. He also takes a look at the firmware updates for the FTX1F. Josh, KI6NAZ, takes us along for the W6TRW Field Day and Soda Extravaganza. Boy, they had a fun time up there on the mountain. Thomas, K4SWL, shows us what is in his field radio backpack for his Canada vacation. A warning here, you may want to buy some stuff after you watch this one. Kevin 2E0 Whiskey Mike Golf goes portable and gets some unfavorable audio reports from Slovenia. Kevin W1DED talks to Mike SJ2W about his Swedish contest station. Kevin 2E0 Whiskey Mike Golf goes to Cape Barrow Lighthouse and the Marconi station in Prince Edward Island. And finally, Steve KM9G gets some returned Amazon gear and repairs it. Well, that's it for this week. I've been Ed, November 2 Echo Charlie for Amateur Radio News and Notes. Thanks, as always, for being with us. Hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Best 73, and we look forward to seeing you next week.